Hello everyone, I am Brittany, and today I thought that it would be a good day to pot up my marble queen Pothos and get it onto a pole because it has some really great vines here and some roots that are coming out the back that I think that we can get to start to climb on a moss pole. So I have two separate little plants here, and I want them to get really big and beautiful and lush like the ones that I've seen on TikTok or here on YouTube. So I want to get these started while they're pretty small and young so they can start building those aerial roots. This is a plant that I had bought from a big box store. I kind of separated it out. I have some of it in this little mix Pothos pot that is growing up this cocoa core pole. And I wanted this to be really lush and just kind of full. And it's been doing really nicely. And these little marble queen pieces are doing really nicely as well. And then I had put some cuttings into just this little 4-inch pot to save for later. So I did pull all of those out and kind of picked through and decided what I want to add to the moss pole and then what I want to add into that big Pothos pot. So these are the ones that I've decided here to add to the moss pole. They to me were just the prettiest variegation and really healthy vines. So that's the goal for today. If you are interested in seeing this process, stick around, and hopefully over the 2024 year, we can see some really big growth in this marble queen. Okay, so I did lower you down a little bit so you can see what is going on here. I did get everything set up prior to making the video. The moss pole I made, and I don't know about you, but the hardest part of making a moss pole for me is just getting the zip ties to cooperate. So instead of you sitting here watching me do that for 20 minutes, I figured I'd get it all ready to go. I have a 4-inch pot. This is just a couple of pieces of a marble queen, so I didn't want to go too huge with the pot. The moss pole, the cuttings here, I have some of these little just plant clippies that I'm going to attach the plant to the pole with. I have a really chunky soil mixture that I made up that I'm going to use for this so the plant gets really good drainage, really good aeration. There is no rotting going on in this pot. So the first thing that I want to do is just put a little bit of this soil mixture into the bottom of the pot here. And then I did not fill the moss pole all the way up. I did leave some here where the soil will go. And then I did leave a little bit on the top as well that I'll fill in as it grows up the pole. So I'm gonna get this moss pole filled in. Actually, here's what I wanna do. I'm gonna get this moss pole filled in here with this really chunky soil, which is going to be easier said than done. I should have grabbed a better filler than just this little cup here. Okay, so I got that all filled up. And the reason that I did not put the moss all the way down to the bottom is because you really don't want that stagnant moss sitting in the bottom where the soil is. Because it does stay moist, we are just doing everything in our power to prevent root rot at this point. So we've got that in there, and now we're gonna fill just a little bit of soil into the pot before we get our cuttings into the pot. Okay, so the soil that I made up here, it does have some potting soil in it, and then it has some perlite and some orchid bark, some chunkier orchid bark, and then also a little bit finer orchid bark as well, just hoping to prevent, like I said, any rot from happening. So I'm going to fill that in just a little bit, and then try and keep this upright. I did put the moss pole a little bit more in the center rather than all the way to the edge, just to have a little bit more stability in this pot. When the moss is wet like it is now, it tends to be really heavy, so I don't want anything falling over. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this first piece in here. And it does have some roots growing out the back that I'm not gonna be able to get into the moss just right off the bat here, but there are a couple shorter pieces. So I am going to stick those short pieces right into that moss because I want it to start growing into it and kind of grabbing it. And as you can see, the roots are in the back of this plant. So instead of putting it just straight down in, like maybe we would want to do with a flower, we are going to tilt it so the roots are growing into that moss and hopefully growing up the pole. So I'm going to take one of these little plant clips that I have. I just ordered these offline and they were very inexpensive. And I'm just going to kind of secure that root right in there. And the bottom roots, the actual soil roots, I'm just kind of winding around that moss pole so that they grow down into there as well. I'm going to do the same thing with this other piece. Here you can see it has some really long roots, but then right out the back, you can see what will be those aerial roots right there that I'm going to put into the moss. And look at this little baby leaf. So sweet. So I'm going to do that over on the other side so that each vine here has its own space to grow up the pole. These roots are a little wild. That's good though. So I'm going to just stick that root right on in there. Give it a little bit of its own space. And then I'm going to use another clippy. I grabbed like 12 clips. I don't know what I was thinking. I really only need the 2 here. Okay, so those aerial roots are against the moss pole, and I guess I'll turn it so you can see, the soil roots are down where the soil is going to be. Let me look at this from my angle just to make sure. You know, actually, I'm not even. Let's scooch this guy over just a little bit. Make sure that that root is back in there. Here we go. It's kind of a flat pole as opposed to round, so I'm gonna scooch this guy a little over too. There we go. That looks better. A little more a little more equal. And then just because this one guy is kind of shooting out so far, I think I'm gonna pin him up a little bit just so that it's not taking up quite so much space. There we go. Okay, now you can see a little more equal. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and I might use one of these little shovels. This came with the mat that I'm using, this mat that I just ordered. It has little tulips on it. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm gonna open this. Sorry about the noise. Okay, so I did get the majority of that soil in off camera because, as you can see, that was a messy process. But what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of pressing that soil in. One, that's going to help with stability here of this pole. And then for 2, because this mix is so chunky, there tends to be a lot of like air holes that I don't want there to be. So I want those roots to be really nourished and in there. So I'm just kind of filling this in a little bit, making sure everything is packed in there. And there is a little piece of vine here that is not necessary. So I think we're just going to trim that little chunk off there. And I want this little baby out in the front a little bit. So that is basically it. As this grows up the pole, I will fill this in a little bit more, and I will then extend as needed. So in 2024, I'm really excited to see what happens with this little guy. I will keep you updated. We will do some updates on these plants as we go throughout the year. But that is basically that, and it looks beautiful. And I really think that this plant is going to just love this pole and love this moisture and love this opportunity to climb and grow really big. If you have not seen some of the creators on this app or on some other apps, there are gigantic Marble Queen Pothos that are so beautiful. I mean, the leaves are twice the size of my head, and I have read that in the wild, and if you are really lucky and really good at what you do, they could potentially start fenestrating, which I think is really awesome. So I'm gonna go ahead, get this all cleaned up, trim this down just a little bit. If you have any advice on moss poles, because I am not an expert, I am learning as I go, or have any questions on any of the products that I have and that I've used today, please comment down below. Also, to keep up with this guy and some of the other cool things that we have coming this year in my collection, please subscribe to my channel. And I can't wait to talk to you in the comments and to hear all your tips and to see your beautiful moss pole plants. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you next time.